G'day, good evening, wherever you happen to be. Come on in, we've got a big show ahead for you this Tuesday night here on Sky News, including more problems with this Bureau of Meteorology and its website. The Queensland Government have gone hard. We will do so again as well. I want to introduce you to a new face that will be around Australian politics for the next 6 years. It is going to be the brand new One Nation Senator from New South Wales. We'll have a chat to Sean a little later. And our great mate Nigel Farage joins us from the United Kingdom, where, as always, the man on the path to number 10 is looking better than ever before. As we speak, the Senate is doing the best it can to waste time and spin the wheels. Well, as you remember, a couple of weeks ago, this is what the august senator from Victoria, Green, now independent, Lidia Thorpe, had said about the parliament. Now, of course, she was speaking about a metaphor, of course, wasn't she?
Fire has deep spiritual significance for First Peoples. It clears, it renews, it makes way for something new. That is what I was speaking about, not arson, but challenging colonial systems that continue to harm people. For 250 years, First Peoples have been told to be quiet, to respect institutions that were never built for us. I will not be quiet. I will tell the truth. And the truth is that this parliament is in desperate need of renewal. Parliamentarians sit idly by while our people are dying, passing laws that harm us. They sit idly by while people in Palestine face genocide. This parliament has the power to change, but those in this place choose not to. They maintain a harmful institution. It needs to be rebuilt from the ground up if anything is ever going to change. That's what my words were about. And yet here we are, treating a metaphor like a national emergency. What a joke. The problem isn't my words. It's the colonial systems that still refuse to change. And all these politicians with their hot takes, their fake outrage, is never really about me. It's about the major parties playing the game of who can be tougher on the naughty little black girl. The Liberals jump in, trying to wedge Labor. It's all a competition to look tough in the eyes of the racists out there who want to see black women dragged down and humiliated. It's childish, it's dishonest, it's about counting racist votes. I won't participate. I will always stand strong against these useless major parties who continually fail on the real issues. I won't apologise and I won't be dragged down. Then there's the right-wing media. They love to lecture me about seeking headlines, but they're the ones writing the headlines. They peddle slop to drive outrage, clicks and sell papers. These hollowed-out, irrelevant news outlets.
Now, as you know, she made the comments that burned down the parliament. Now, in defence of herself, and I don't know why we get this going for 2 days, previously the parliament had decided, because Labor and the Greens got together, not to censure her for those comments. So tonight is her opportunity to respond to the conversation that has happened around her. Well, of course, Lidia Thorpe is the one who was on her hands and knees at the front of Old Parliament House. Lidia Thorpe was the one who was saying unpleasant things to people at the front of strip clubs. Lidia Thorpe is the one who has said many a thing into a microphone that presumably we're allowed to report as well, right? Now, there is a part of me that not admires, but respects that she is what she believes. But what she believes is not the majority opinion, even of the left, let alone the centre, let alone the rest of the country. Thankfully, the best thing about an election which has just passed is that we are closer to the end of her time in the Senate, because she claims she's not going to seek re-election. I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't end up being the case, and she'll try to go round again. And watch all of the media friends that will come out of the woodwork to defend her. The idea that she was speaking as burning was a metaphor and some sort of secret extra message is garbage. It is reverse trolling from perhaps one of the best trolls there has ever been in the federal parliament. One who hates the system, but loves the paycheck every 15th of the month, the one who hates the system, but when it's time to say what you need to say to qualify for a job in the system of which you hate, then, of course, you're willing to bend your words and bend the knee. Now, obviously, Lidia Thorpe and I will never agree on very much. Her right to exist in the federal parliament, again, up to the voters. Originally, it was the Greens voters with the help of the Labor Party that got her there. She now stands on her own 2 feet. And even I, who was critical of what she said, knew she was not speaking about directly threatening the parliament, but the idea that she is even given a benefit of the doubt, given the opportunity for people to look the other way and given the opportunity to turn it somehow into, yet again, poor little Lidia. Well, imagine if any other member of parliament, let alone one from a party that is not as well loved or given a free pass by many of those in Canberra. You can imagine what the reaction would be. There would be no excuses, no explanations, just go straight to the problem place. I look forward to the reaction in the next 24 hours to the reaction, and then, of course, there'll be a reaction to the reaction to the reaction, but till then, done. Now, as you know, we broke the news last night that the Australian newspaper had done some digging, got some information, and that power bills were set to rise and 2030 targets were going to need an awful lot of money behind them. All of this was in a report which was handed to the Climate Change Minister. But my issue, while I share the rage of everyone about the cost of this transition, and it has been my sole focus for the best part of 15 years, which is not to have the debate about do things exist or not exist and how much can Australia do to actually change the weather. Remember, reality is, even if we did everything that the Greens want, it is only 1%. 33% is China, 13% is the United States. Once you put together the third world, Russia, India, 45 minutes of the climate clock are the problem. But there is a very important part of this story that remains really one of the inside stories of how this government is able to pull the wool over people's eyes, the way it is able to operate in darkness. Now, what do they say? There are two things that you don't want to see made. One is a piece of legislation, the other a sausage. Well, the reality is that our system should be one where we can see what a government is considering, we can hear what advice they are getting, we can engage with the people who they are negotiating with, and then, and only then, would a parliament be informed as to whether support or to not support something. But if we can roll that overlay again of the report with all of its redactions, this is the real story that I want to get to. Because, yes, the power price stuff is important, but have a look at this document that had to be argued its way into you being able to see it. Line after line after line, just blacked out as if it was some sort of national security. As if on page 42, we really will learn where Harold Holt is. This is a document about climate change. This is a document about power prices. Yet this is how this government works, that they will do everything they can to fight for you to be able to see even a crack in the door to have a look at what is really going on. And they bitch and they moan and they fight and they slow play the ball, and then when eventually you get a document after they've made the decision, after the law has passed, after the bandwagon moves on to another story, only then do you get the document with all of those lines in it. Specifically about this one here. Vast swathes of the document were blacked out, including the entire 24 consecutive pages of a section under the vague title of Other Department Policy Areas. Why couldn't we see that? Under what excuse was that held back from the public? Pages under a section headed Delivering Your Agenda, with the subheadings of Locking in and Accelerating Emissions Reductions and Navigating Global Climate Action and Delivering COP31, were also fully redacted. I repeat, we are not talking here about national secrets. We are talking about their plans about how to deal with 1% of the world's climate crisis. Understandably, the opposition is angry, and rightly so, about this today. This should have been their total focus. Don't get distracted with anything else, but this is what they talked about today.
Chris put on a song and dance today, as he does, trying to cover up what people know across this country.
Chris Bowen is actually withholding information. He's taking his advice from UN climate czar Simon Steele, who says that eating vegetables and fruit will be a once-in-a-year treat.
Why did this minister do everything he could to hide this document from the Australian public, instead of doing everything he could to reduce power prices by $275?
The way this government treats with contempt anyone who is not the government is a major insight into how things work in Australia. These are bad and dark days, very effective in terms of media management, because what they do is, by keeping the information off the table, no one can dare report the downside of what they are planning to do. The first time you hear about it is when the government announces what it's already decided upon. By not seeing the information that is handed to the ministers, you don't know if they've chosen the best, second best, or the fourth worst option. And this is not a one-off. This document that you saw today, as starkly shown for all of those black lines, all of those efforts to keep from you the details of what this government has planned to do or is planning to do into the future. There are plenty of other examples, including, remember when they wanted to introduce a bill to censor the internet? This same government wanted the misinformation bill, where government departments would decide what truth was based off what the government decided to be truth at the time. Every single major piece of legislation, when it is negotiated behind closed doors with lobby groups who have to sign non-disclosure agreements, like the people who were talking about NDIS or a whole bunch of other areas of government policy. Every piece of legislation being discussed and debated behind the scenes comes with a piece of paper. If you want to be in the room to give us your point of view, sign this piece of paper so you can't tell anyone outside the room what we're considering. And then the most recent, and something that I've talked about many times before, and it is the single biggest attack on our democracy as we speak, which is the same person, Michelle Rowland, who wanted to censor the internet, is now in a more powerful position as the Attorney General, wanting to increase the powers that the Labor Party and this government have to deny you information. For the third time, let's roll that overlay again of that report, because what you are seeing, in part, with all of those black lines all through it, are the excuses that a minister is allowed to use because this piece of paper may well have gone somewhere near the federal cabinet. Under the new laws, we would get even less access to even fewer pages of these documents. Again, this is a spectacular media strategy, and a spectacular media strategy leads to a spectacular political outcome. But this is not what an open democracy looks like. This is not how the system is supposed to work. And unsurprisingly, this is not how the system was supposed to work when this bloke wasn't the Prime Minister and was applying for the job the first time around.
The truth is that we're an open, transparent party. There needs to be complete transparency. What we need is a Prime Minister who's prepared to be transparent, a more honest and transparent government going forward. Who will make it transparent? We're being transparent.
So over and over and over again. That's the promise. Well, today there was a report which was released by the Centre for Public Integrity. And I'm going to take my time with this tonight because you need to know that it is not just me ranting away and screaming into the void. Even lefty organisations like this very one, the Centre for Public Integrity, released its report today, and it has slammed the secrecy of this government. It has attacked everything that I have just said and backs in every perspective I have had on this issue as one that is not okay. A few examples. Number one, the Freedom of Information Amendment Bill 2025 represents a serious and alarming step backwards, expanding exemptions, reintroducing application fees and banning anonymous requests. These changes are almost universally opposed and would make it harder for journalists, whistleblowers and the public to hold government to account. Another page, another finding. The Albanese government has made little progress on one of Australia's most pressing integrity problems, ending the culture of jobs for mates in public appointments. Meanwhile, appointments continue to be made without sufficient guardrails to guarantee transparency and independence, including that of the new Office of National Intelligence, that person, a former advisor to the Prime Minister. There's also the bloke who ended up in charge of the Department of Climate Change. He used to work in the Queensland government as a sort of right-hand man, then external lobbyist with great access to the Queensland government. He was referred to as option B in the recruitment process that unsurprisingly concluded that the hand-picked Labor favourite was the best person for the job. Ironically, what role did he play as the head of that department in either the creation of that redacted document or the decision to try to redact that document? This matters because this is our system. This is why elections have consequences. There's even more here from this Centre for Public Integrity. The Albanese government has failed to curb the undue influence of big business, leaving glaring loopholes in Australia's lobbying regime untouched. Rather than improving transparency, the government has blocked scrutiny, including refusing FOI requests for ministerial diary extracts related to the Federal Labor Business Forum, arguing such documents are not official documents of a minister. And one last one. In a move that weakens Parliament's capacity for scrutiny, the government cut staffing numbers to the opposition following the 2025 election and to independent MPs after the 2022 election. Now, despite the fact that this independent organisation has concluded exactly what I have concluded, has concluded exactly what your lying eyes, according to the left, can see about how this government works. How did the favourable media report on what is a damning assessment of this government? By, of course, bringing up the previous one. Because somehow all of those things that I've just read, all of those things that I've just shown you, all of those things that you have seen that this government does, well, apparently it's as bad as the Morrison government. So therefore, somehow let them off. One of the few people to talk about this publicly today was the independent and kind of teal MP, Helen Haines. Suppressing transparency only increases distrust in our citizenry. That's the last thing that we want when democracy in the free world is under attack. So can I give a free piece of advice to anyone who may or may not be listening inside the opposition? You're not going to get on the 6 p.m news every night by talking about this stuff, but why not walk the walk now to try to get together with the independents, with the upper house, and try to force changes in legislation and force the government through embarrassment to have to release the reins. Come out tomorrow and say, I don't care what happened when somebody else was Prime Minister. If I'm Prime Minister, this system changes. Here's the piece of paper. Here's the legislation. That means we're going to change it now. Because just like the rot in Victoria, where their system has become so opaque that it doesn't matter if it's the Corruption Commission or it doesn't matter if it's the Ombudsman screaming in headlines in newspapers that the system is screwed, yet because the political operation of the then Premier or now Prime Minister is so ruthless that they are willing to continue this behaviour because they assume no one is paying attention. Well, it is up to those who have the opportunity to draw attention to this. It is up to those who are paid to be in and around Parliament House writing about the news on our behalf to show a passing interest in this particular story. I don't care what was the previous standard. I don't care what the standard is of this government. The NDAs for people to be able to get anywhere near a minister have to stop. The mass redaction of documents must stop. The diaries of ministers, backbenchers and the Prime Minister must become public and must be publicly available within a month. Unless it is a legitimate national security issue, and even then there are processes in which the federal parliament can discuss those things behind the scenes, open the damn door. You claim to be better than everyone else, yet you are worse than ever when it comes to how you treat the Australian public. And while it may only be a bare few of us that actually care, believe me, it is the difference between a truly free and a not quite free country. These are one of those little examples about how they move the ball every single day, and you wake up in a place like Victoria where you wonder how we got here. The answer is this is how we could get there. Meantime, in relation to more about the power bill situation and the excuses that were being offered by the government today about this report, of which, if you could look through the Venetian blinds of redacted comments, you might be able to see something there that, again, power bills are going to rise. The 2030 and the 2035 targets are going to be massive. Well, here is the minister caught red-handed, pretending nothing to see here.
Why did this minister do everything he could to hide this document from the Australian public, instead of doing everything he could to reduce power prices by $275?
The Leader of the Opposition quotes the incoming government brief. If the Leader of the Opposition had read on, she might have further quoted that brief. Decarbonising the electricity and energy system is foundational to achieving a whole-of-economy transformation, maintaining energy affordability and reliability. There's a whole lot more. There's a whole...
And then even more in and around this today. The Industry Minister, guess who he is blaming for this government's failure to deliver the 275 reduction that they promised? Oh, that's right, the last government. This government has now been a full term and is many months into the first year of its second term. Yet, despite the fact that they have been caught red-handed, failing their promise on 275 from the last term, producing documents which will increase power bills, and a government that fails to promise they will come down anytime soon, the balls to know that if you just blame the other mob, the media will eat it up like lunch in a jail.
If you take your hands off the wheel for years, and there's capital flight from the electricity sector, which is what happened under the Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison period, then there are consequences.
Oh, the stones on these people. Anyway, we're here to fire up, and we will each and every night. Now, let us talk about the situation regarding the Bureau of Meteorology, the BOM, as we know it here, who are not quite acting like da bomb at the moment. See what I did there? Dad joke. Well, they had an old website that existed for many years, and you probably knew how to get your way through this thing like the back of your hand. If you wanted to have a look at a rain radar, you went bang, bang, you know where to go. If you want to have a look at whether there's going to be hail, lightning, bang, bang, you know where to go. What's happening for the next 7 days, bang, bang, you know where to go. Well, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, they introduced a brand new website, $4 million, and good luck. You're going to need an old Gregory's or maybe Waze or Google Maps to make your way through all of this. And that has proved to be quite the problem. Now, I've been trying to work out exactly what attempts the Bureau of Meteorology have made to actually inform people that this change was happening. Unsurprisingly, relatively difficult to find. We will continue to go back through and see, was there a day, was there a date when assembled media were walked through the new website? What information was made public prior to the change? Because the reality is that in places like Queensland, the storm season is whenever. Generally speaking, of course, towards the end of spring, the beginning of summer, and then it can keep on going all the way through to maybe March. Now, one of the problems about the storms that happened this time, thankfully took no lives, is that hail was a big part of it. Now, if you can pay attention here to the squiggly images that are on your screen here, this is from Malcolm Roberts, the first to point out the difference. On the right-hand side, you can see the new map with basically orange everywhere. In the old map, it had darker red and then eventually black. To anyone who has been glancing at a Bureau of Meteorology radar for years, you know the darker the colour, the more intense the rain, and the super dark colours, it's either going to be massive storm, or most likely going to be hail that's going to end up in there. So as you can see, under the new one, which doesn't use the same colours as the old one, you go, oh, it's going to be bad, but not as bad as I know it to be, because I know my colours, like the back of my hand, about the intensity of the rain. Well, today, the Queensland government did exactly what they should have done, which was to stand up on the behalf of people who were fooled by this new website, and they took it to Parliament today, both the Premier and the Treasurer, absolutely hitting it out of the park about how piss weak this transition to the new website has been.
The changes to the federally run Bureau of Meteorology website are not good enough. The changes to the website don't make sense. The website is flawed. Easy access to individual radars have been removed. The colour scheme we've become accustomed to has changed, and platitudes from Canberra won't cut it with Queenslanders.
This website contains critical flaws. Caboolture, Mr Speaker, a growing area of the southeast corner, has disappeared as a locator on the bomb map, while the strength and colour-associated colour coding of the storms that Queenslanders relied on through thick and thin has significantly changed for the worse.
Bloody oath. We're not just talking about the storm chasers, although a big shout out to all of them around southeast Queensland. We're talking about normal people being able to read the map as it has always been. Why did it need to change? Well, there's all of these back-end reasons. Well, OK, why'd you change the colour? Silence, as always. Move on to something else. Now, speaking of moving on to something else, Kamala Harris won't. As you know, Kamala Harris, giggliest person to ever run for the presidency, 108 days, more than $1 billion, yet still lost the popular vote, lost all of the different states, and of course ended up with a campaign in debt. Well, she thinks that history is still calling her. Hundreds of thousands of people have bought her crappy new book. So this is what she thinks that message sends to her about running for president in under 4 years' time.
But you say in your book, I'm not done.
That is correct. I am not done. I have lived my entire career a life of service, and it's in my bones.
Well, service could also be in a soup kitchen. Doesn't always have to be in the presidency. But if she does run, at least we'll be able to see this before she has to drop out of the Democratic race in 4 years' time.
The children of the community are the children of the community.
You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home.
To see the moment in time in which we exist and are present.
That's why we're here today, because we have the ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
Definitely not pissed. Definitely not pissed. That was her at her natural best. Oh, yeah, and by the way, you know how lefties like to pretend I'd never said what you heard me say. Jedi mind trick. Men in Black, memory reset. Well, the Illinois governor was on MSNBC and dropped one heck of a clanger that apparently Democrats have never tried to compare Trump to Hitler.
I haven't suggested that Donald Trump is Hitler. I wouldn't say
I don't think any Democrat has. I actually, and I think it's a smear that they project back on to critics.
Apart from all of these times, Nicole?
What I know is in the early days of the Nazi regime, they started slowly but surely taking away people's rights. And what we're seeing now is the very same thing.
A unified Reich? That's Hitler's language. That's not America's.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler.
Talks about the blood of America as being poisoned, echoing the same exact language used in Nazi Germany.
Beginning to see what happened in Germany back in the 1930s. I never thought that could happen in this country. How do you elect a person president, then all of a sudden give him the authority to be dictator?
Hitler used immigration and racism as their base, and that is what Trump has done. He's Hitler-esque.
Unbelievable.